Hey guys, what's going on? This is Otis here, and today's commentary, what I want to talk about is gun control, because that's the big topic now after this shooting, whether or not people should be armed and how armed they should be. And I think there needs to be probably a little bit more openness with who can have weapons and who can't have weapons. I know certain states you can pretty much have anything, and other states it's pretty hard to even have some things, and so there's definitely a fine line, and I know people are sensitive either way when you talk about it. But my point of view is, I think as long as you're mentally stable, like unlike this maniac who was there, you're mentally stable, you don't have any criminal record, you should be able to own firearms. At least that's my personal view on it. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, if people were armed and stuff, if they had concealed weapons permits or whatever, if they were carrying, they would have stopped him. But you have to remember too, if you do have a concealed weapons permit, there's 3 places you're not allowed to take your weapon into. You're not allowed to take them into a post office, a courthouse, or a movie theater. So I mean, even if you did have your weapon, it would be technically illegal to actually have it. So that's kind of a point too that a lot of people always forget about it, the places that you can't take it to. And the airport you can't take it to now too, unless you have unless you're an actual police officer, or you have certain other different types of at least concealed weapons permits and other federal permits pretty much to carry on airplanes. And it's very rare people actually do. Even police officers that I know, they never really carry on airplanes, even though they legally can. But it's just too much to have a hassle going through through the government and stuff. And most of the planes have marshals on them now anyways, and so there's no point really in doing that. But when you go and you look at these mass shootings too, there's always pretty much a few different types of ways where they end. And it's either one where they'll either kill themselves at the very end if there's no one else for them to kill to, or if they know that they're pretty much done for, then they're just going to usually off themselves, or the police will end up killing them. Another way, usually how these massacres usually end, which is pretty much more which is probably the more popular way they actually end, not a popular way, but most of the time they end, like this one too, is where actually the main weapon, they're using jams, and they don't know how to fix the jam, whether it be, for this guy, the magazine actually failed, and so he wasn't actually feeding rounds into his AR-15 when he was firing. And just like the LA Hollywood shootout that happened 10-15 years ago, when the guys had the AK-47s with the drum magazines too, after they ended up robbing the bank, pretty much what ended up happening for them was one of the guys ended up having a jam. He wasn't able to clear the jam, which it was a very, very easy thing to clear if he knew what he was doing, but he didn't know what he was doing, and so he ended up pretty much, the police were able to move up on him after that and ended up killing him, and the other guy too ended up running out of ammo finally, and ended up killing him also. So that's how most of these type of mass shootings end, where they'll either run out of ammo, a weapon jam, or malfunction will happen, and they don't know how to clear it. Because typically, in this guy too, what they were finding out now is he wanted to go to some ranges, try to learn the weapons, and if he would have went to a range and learned how to do what he wanted to do pretty much and practice with it, when you take a weapons class, they're usually 3-4 days long, and one day, at least from a half all the way up to the full day, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be working on jams and weapon malfunctions. And there's a few different types of weapon malfunctions you can have. Your first one is your magazine's not fully fed into the machine gun properly. And basically what happens is there's no round actually in the chamber, and so when you go to end up firing, either the clip will fall out, typically what happens, or the clip will just stay there and it's not fully secure in. So that's the very first thing they always teach you to do, is you always want to jam your magazine in when it's in fire, and you're going to want to recock the weapon to make sure a round's actually in the chamber. Then what they also work on too is actual weapon jams with your with the bullet casing, usually not leaving the gun. That's your typical jam that you're going to get. And so basically what your typical jam that you're going to get is called the stovepipe jam, where the actual casing gets stuck into the ejection chamber and the other bullet is not fed all the way up through. And it's a very common jam. It's something that happens very often. And with the LA Hollywood shootout guys, one of them ended up getting that, and so pretty much all you have to do is just what they teach you nowadays is to cock your weapon and put it sideways and twist it upside down, because what ends up happening is the shell casing ends up falling out and the next bullet goes into the chamber. And so if he knew what he was doing, he would have been able to keep on going with their spree. Although they didn't kill anyone, they did injure a lot of people there. And so for this guy, Another thing too with these high round magazines with like machine guns or ARs or even pistols too, what typically ends up happening is if you keep bullets in the magazine, even any magazine to begin with, what happens is that spring wears over time, and so what it's not able to do is it's not able to feed the bullets, and so the spring just gets worn out, and so maybe about halfway through it can't feed the bullets anymore with the magazine, and so that's what probably ended up happening to this guy. He maybe ended up buying the drum magazine for the AR. He probably loaded up all the rounds into it, and he left them in there, and that's usually what will kill a magazine in general. And you know, everyone was very lucky that the guy didn't really know what he was doing in his weapons training. But you know, I think for most states too, they're probably maybe a little bit overboard with like with their weapons, and most states are like under, and there's not really any states in the middle. I mean, probably Alaska and Texas and Arizona, they're the ones where it's pretty much is you can open carry, you don't really need any permits. And those are the states where pretty much everything's allowed to, which, you know, it's understandable. And typically though too, actually, states that you actually have more, because there's a little bit less violence with the weapons and guns than a state that actually has more laws with the weapons. And I don't know why that is. There's a few different theories and stuff, but I mean, some states that do have the full weapons and stuff are able to have a little bit higher gun violence too. But you know, that's just my personal take on it. Is just, if you're a law-abiding citizen, I mean, you have a clean criminal record, you should able to have a concealed weapons permit, or at least maybe not even a concealed. I would be even completely fine with people open carry act, what they officially call it, which pretty much there's the two types of carrying that you have. You have your open carry, which is pretty much you can see the gun on someone's holster. Then you have a concealed thing, which you need permits for pretty much in all states. I'm pretty sure. I think there's probably a few. I know Alaska, you don't need a permit to conceal your gun. It's just the only thing that they require is if a police officer or someone stops you, that's the first thing you have to tell them is, hey, you know, I have a weapon on me. And so that's something that, you know, it's definitely there for, and I completely agree with. But you know, I just think that I can't talk right now. Just forget what I was thinking. But you know, I think the gun control laws, at least in most states, they're just not really working. I mean, people just go, and you can easily just order stuff online. You can even part weapons out too, where you can order a part piece by piece and ship it into the different states and stuff. Don't allow them. So I mean, the laws are there, but the people who want to break them are going to break them anyways, just typically with any type of law. So that's just kind of unfortunate that the good people who actually want weapons and want to use them responsibly always end up getting screwed with stuff like this. And now there's probably going to be a little bit more gun control. The only thing I really don't hope for what happens is people just make it all into big political things. I know the election's coming up, which is kind of unfortunate when like tragedies happen and people go and try to turn and twist it to a political thing, which is kind of unfortunate and sad. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this commentary, and thanks for watching.